Okay, so I am answering a few questions for Nate Vaccaro's final project, and I'm going to be talking about internet poetry, my poetry, and the intersections of both. So what's up? The first question is, how do I characterize my poetry? It's very much interested in expressions of queerness, feminist intersections, and it deals with personal, confessional, autobiographical content, but also often is dealing with social commentary and involving themes of consumerism, class, fashion, and different symbols of fashion and class and how they intersect. And it also very much does comment on contemporary media culture and how the internet intersects with those things. It also is often expressed not just in written forms but in digital forms and in visual forms as well, as I'm not just a poet but a media artist, although I don't see why those things need to be separate. The internet has certainly influenced how I see myself. It has influenced how most millennials see themselves and generations coming after and those before us. There is certainly a need, almost a necessity, to exist in two places at once. And in fact, I'm not sure they're really separate at this point. Most people have some sort of digital persona. Some people exist in their own realm of reality, and then they check the internet sometimes. And other people don't ever leave the internet. They basically live there. So we start to see ourselves certainly as either one continued existence or some sort of duality of existing in two places at once. And oftentimes the real person differs from the persona, and other times it's a continuation. And what's most interesting to me is when the digital persona is so much more strong, evident, and aesthetic than the real persona, that the digital persona starts to leak into reality, which is a really beautiful thing to see. How has the internet influenced poetry? How is poetry changing because of the internet? That's a very important question, and it's one that my dissertation is slightly attempting to look at and answer. Most of the poetry written in the late 20th and 21st century has been considered as part of postmodern. But I think that digital forms, specifically those that sort of take from internet and digital culture, need a new category. They need a new defining period to be part of, because the internet has changed the way poetry is written. There's a language of the internet. There's a language that our iPhones speak, that Instagram speaks, and that language is being infiltrated not only into the content of poetry in the 21st century, but also the way it's formed, the syntax, the word choice, beyond just referencing the internet, but actually starting to sound like it. The way we speak IRL changes, and the way we write also changes because of this. But there's also this sense that the internet, again, gives people agency to be seen as they wish. Something Eve Sedgwick expresses in her essay White Glasses is about the power to be seen by others as you see yourself. The internet gives us that power. And because poetry is sort of a form of aesthetic control for writers. They get to address the world as they'd like it to be seen or understood, and with the intersection of that actually happening for art, image as well, there's a lot to say. We have special forms now like flarf poetry that specifically deal with this kind of phenomenon. I wrote a book called Mallbrat that came out in 2016 that's broken up into two sections. The first dealing much with my coming of age as a preteen and a teenager, and the second half of the book dealing more with poems that reflect upon my life as an adult. I came of age with the internet. The first computer my family had in our home was in 1998. When I was in 7th grade, it was a gateway computer, and I spent hours talking on the internet to strangers in chat rooms. At this point, that was considered pretty wild, perhaps even dangerous to do so. In 1998, 1999, if you were going to meet someone from the internet, it was death. You were going to be murdered. The Craigslist killer. Of course, I did meet people from the internet, mostly people that I was interested in romantically, and I was, a preteen, early teen, and when my father and mother found out, it was not a happy scene whatsoever. This is really interesting to me because now most people meet their partners on the internet. They buy their houses on the internet. They do all of their business on the internet. So it's very there was a big shift at some point between when I came of age on the internet and how the internet is used now. Do I think some of the original charm of the internet has been lost? I do. I think MySpace was a charming place on the internet. It was very user choreographed, more so than any kind of social media we have now. Another important site was Black Planet, which recently Solange used to launch her new album. But these were sort of real important meeting places. It was really cool to read the misconnections on Craigslist. A lot of the internet, because of SESTA and FOSTA, recently passed regulations that would, we're supposed to, or supposedly protecting against sex trafficking, but also are legislating sort of the free agency of the internet in many ways, because of cyber criminality. But I do think, there's something that's been lost. My partner is from Brooklyn, and he told me in the late 90s, early 2000s, he'd go on MySpace, and when he wanted to meet up with a new friend, they'd go to like the 7th or 8th floor of Macy's on 5th Ave and 34th Street and like hang out in the home goods department because they could like sit in chairs there. I don't know if that, I'm not a teen anymore, but there was something dangerous but also charming about the internet, the GIFs. There is this phenomenon too now that because of mediation and because of sort of major tech companies and corporations controlling so much of our data, such as Facebook, such as Instagram, places that we are constantly working for every time we post for free. We are employees that don't get paid. We're sort of owned. That wasn't happening pre-social media. The internet was rather owned by the user instead of the internet owning the user. Does that make sense? We've sort of had a collapse of the mediated world, the corporate world, the commercial world into the base, to use a Marxist term, and there's kind of no differentiation between IRL and URL anymore, but not because we've created the matrix, but rather the matrix, I know, I'm talking about the Matrix, but it seems real. It seems like there used to be a different relationship that the user had to the internet versus now. With all of the ad tracking and ads popping up on your phone, similar to your searches or even things you've just said, it seems. It's more like the internet's controlling you. Wild. I'm going to read from the first part of Malbrat, my book. Many 90s symbols. There's my high school uniform. This can't be dangerous. I lost myself over 4 years. The creeps peering at tiny creatures in pleats, fat cell phones, sweaty palms, nails of yellow, the soft rouge of cheek. Brought to anointment by a wet kiss, obscured through iron fence, rushing visions of the purple necks of peacocks to plump and tender chest. When I finally realized they had all left the table because of my smell, it was too late. Corner the most popular boy in the athletic shed and ask him to prom. I shaved my public hair to vanish the hardest years, hot breath over zebra print bra on videotape, record over Grandpa's funeral, tongues and lips always wet and needy. He found me on the internet and I snuck out to meet him at desk, small bodies slipping in his father's Mercedes truck. To survive, I would have to enjoy it. He asked if I came. I said in my own way. I will tell you that one time a friend had sex with another friend behind a wooden porch and threw the condom wrapper at my nose. This can't be dangerous.